Hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to our Institution of Global Professionals free webinar. Thank you all for joining with us in this lovely day. And my humble request to all of you, please stay connected with us till the so, my dear lovely audience, today I'm your host Nasrin Nisha from Bangladesh, and currently I'm studying MSc in Psychology at the National University in my country. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud to be associated with IGP as a global member. I feel honored and privileged to host this webinar. It's my delight to welcome all of you to our Institution of Global Professionals free webinar. So thank you all for joining us in this marvelous moment. It's my humble request to all of you, please share this program in Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and with your friends, your colleagues, and you can also mention them in our comment box. So, my dear lovely audience, it's my humble request to all of you share this event more and more so that people can know about it. They can also join this webinar. And before starting our show, I would like to thank all of you for joining us right now, and I also like to thank our volunteer team who's working with IGP. So, dear audience, I'm your I'm your host Nasri, member of IGP. Welcome you once again. So every day we have some new participants who join from different place, different nation, and different time. So let me give you a little concept about IGP. Institution of Global Professionals serves student and community resource providing holistic social work and education for create a proficient generation. IGP is a leading online skill development institute with thousands of learners worldwide. We make it able to use for every knowledge seeker to originate personality, more ambitious, made confident to face any circumstance and develop own skills. We are entrusted with international recognition. We believe that it's not effective to increase one's skills just by acquiring formal education. So, we provide effective training, consultation, offline, online courses, etc. by best and trained speakers, coaches from all over the world to create a best learning platform for all of you. Our mission is to empower people and enhance. So let's learn together and grow together. Dear audience, we have already completed our 530 webinar. And today I'm presenting webinar number 531. And the topic is how to draft a research proposal. So before starting our program, let me read some comments from our participants. Okay, we have Annalene W. Okay, welcome. Then we have Alex Xavier Alvarez. We have Cherry Yamaguchi, Jubilin Vilare. Then we have Angelo. We have Paula. Then we have Joseph. We have Millet, Evelyn Perry. Then we have Leah, Rosie. So many active participants. They are right now with us and watching us. Please, it's my request once again, share this program more and more, and please mention your friends in our programs. So Dear audience, today we have our honorable speaker from India. Her name is Dr. Shivani Vashist. She is professor and head of Institute of FSR Haryana chapter. So let's welcome our honorable speaker.
Thank you so much for having me here. Thank you and namaskar
Good,
from India.
good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
You can start it.
Okay, I hope I'm audible, Nasreen.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So, I welcome all the participants for this session on how to draft a research proposal. Before I start, I would like to thank IGP for their initiative of the collaborative learning and inviting resource persons from all over the globe. And their motto, let's learn and grow, definitely is eye catching, and it's the time that academicians, students, scholars, they all come together on a platform and exchange their expertise and benefit each other. So I would compliment IGP for their great work. Keep going, and thank you once again for inviting me today. I'm Dr. Shivani Vashisht and professor at Manav Rachna International Institute of Research and Studies, which is located in Faridabad, India. So, before I begin with my presentation on how to draft research proposal, the first question that comes to everybody's mind is why there is a need for this topic for today's session. We all know and we all understand, coming in academics, scholars and teachers, young postgraduate students, is the time that we all devote our time towards research. The emphasis now is in publication and publishing good research articles, because if one publishes, one continues to remain very important, significant. So the line is either you publish or you perish. Now, besides publishing research articles, which one would usually get it published in good research journals, another area which requires your focus is on writing research proposals. Now, research proposals are usually sought by government agencies. These are also sought by your institution where you work, uh, because institutions like universities and colleges, they provide seed money, they fund it, and they look for good research proposals coming from academicians and scholars. So, besides government agencies, you have your own institution funding it, and also there are agencies and institutions abroad in different parts of the world that keep on sending the openings for research proposal. The idea behind all this is that institutions look for good research proposal that would be path breaking and that would definitely be supporting society and would help to overcome the challenges and the problems that one finds in the society. We all have gone through COVID pandemic for past more than 2 years. Each part of the world was affected by it. So vaccine came as a savior for all of us, and that was only possible because scientists, they did their own way of research and came out with different vaccinations. So that was possible because of their in depth research. So let's make a beginning and let's move ahead. So, in today's session, I would be talking about briefly about what is research, the characteristics and types of research, and then I would be majorly talking about what is a research proposal, what is its structure, the layout, and the various components of a research proposal, like your introduction, abstract, how to conduct a literature review, what should be the objectives of research and how to mention that, and with the help of Bloom's taxonomy, how to collect data, the primary and secondary data, and do and don'ts in research and the major mistakes that usually we find students and young scholars mostly commit when they are writing a research proposal. And let me tell you that in my presentation is majorly from my own experience that I have seen students and young scholars when they write their research proposal. So during my experience, I have seen how do they approach it and what are the basic questions that comes to their mind, uh, that how to write a research proposal, what mistakes, the errors that they commit. And from my experience, then I have made this presentation. Of course, I've taken help of a few books that we mostly refer to when we are talking about research or research methodology. I would be mentioning the name of the books also towards the end, so you can go for study at your end and research more about it. And since I am from humanities background, so my presentation majorly would be talking about humanities and social sciences. So, what is research? That's the first question that comes to our mind, that how do we define research? So if we break it up, it is made up of two syllables, re and search. Search, we know what has been searched, what has been already explored, investigated. And then there's another syllable, a prefix which is attached to it is re. So we are re-investigating, we are re-exploring whatever facts have already been searched by explorers. What is already established, we are looking at it with a new perspective. We are going to revisit it with a new mindset, with a new perspective. So we have various scholars who have given definitions about research. So, Grinnell, he says that research is a structured inquiry that utilizes acceptable scientific methodology to solve problems and create new knowledge that is generally applicable. On the other hand, we have Burns, who defines it as a systematic investigation to find answers to a problem. Albert and Georgi asserts that research is seeing what everybody else has seen and thinking what nobody else has thought. And from here, you will get an idea, you will get an indication that your research has to be a novel research. It has to be a new research. It is not going to be what has already been produced by different researchers. So, every research is a new research, and definitely research loses its importance, loses its significance if it doesn't answer to a problem, if it doesn't solve a problem, right? So, it has to be solution oriented. Now, if we talk about the definitions which are given by various dictionaries, so we have one by mentioned by Pocket Oxford Dictionary. So it defines research as an endeavor to discover facts by scientific study, course of critical investigation. Collins Concise Dictionary defines it as a systematic investigation to establish facts or collect information on the subject. Ridgman and Murray defines research as a systematic effort to gain new knowledge. Encyclopedia of Social Sciences says that research is the manipulation of things, concepts, or symbols for the purpose of generalizing to extent, correct, or verify knowledge, whether that knowledge aids in construction of theory or in practice of an art. So, if we see all the definitions given by these dictionaries and what scholars have said about research, we find that it is majorly defined as a journey embarked upon that leads to the discovery of new knowledge or revision of facts, theories, and application. That's the reason I said in the beginning that research combines and is formed by adding two syllables, re and search. So you are going to revisit, you're going to explore, investigate, or discover new knowledge, right? And let me tell you, for each researcher, this journey is a new journey, right? Because every research is going to be a new research, it is going to be a novel research, a new, right? And so it cannot be a duplication of what earlier scholars have already done. That's the reason we say that each scholar, each researcher will move on its own journey. Now, we talk about the various characteristics of research. So, research is a process and it usually has these characteristics which are listed here: controlled, rigorous, systematic, valid and verifiable, impartial, critical, solution oriented. So, very important one, as I said earlier, it has to be solution oriented. A research, if doesn't solve a problem, then it is of no use, no importance. So that's the first mandatory thing. Then, if we talk about it as a controlled research, one of the characteristic which is mentioned here. So we usually find that in social sciences, to have a controlled environment is very difficult. So the outcome in social sciences or in real life is gets affected by multiple factors. So you might find that in humanities and social sciences to have a controlled research is little difficult. However, if one is pursuing research for a topic which is related to sciences, to engineering, then definitely you can control the variables. The second characteristic is rigorous. Now, with rigorous, we mean that research has to be valid, it has to be relevant, it has to be very justified. A research will not mean anything if it is not valid, it is not justified, and it is not relevant, right? So that has to be kept in mind whenever you talk about a topic or you pick a topic for your research proposal, that it has to be relevant, right? And outdated research has no meaning here. Systematic, so whatever the process of research is, it has to move in a systematic manner. The steps involved in research have to be systematic. You have to move gradually from one step to the other till the time one researcher reaches the end of the journey. Valid and verifiable, it has to be, the research undertaken has to be valid. Verifiable, it could be tested, and tested not only by you, it could be tested by anybody, and it would produce the same result. A research has to be very much impartial. No subjectivity from your own side should come into play. You might be, or a researcher might be very passionate about a subject, right? Would have his own views, his or her own views about a topic, but that should not affect a research, right? So a research has to be, because I said it is a systematic process, right? So it should be based on the collection of data, collection of experiences, or the literature that you have read regarding the topic. So it has to be dealt in a very impartial manner without having your thoughts or your personal views come into play. Critical. So a research has to be dealt with a critical mindset, right? One has to be very critical and think about it with that mindset, with that acumen, right? So critical thinking, a researcher needs to develop and needs to have a critical thinking so that the pros and cons, if and buts, everything has been taken care of when you deal with the topic or deal with a research proposal here. So we have, so if we progress further, so we divide research majorly into three types. The first is on the basis of application. It will be a pure or an applied research. If we talk about the objectives, so research is classified into four parts: exploratory, descriptive, correlational, and explanatory. And third is inquiry mode, wherein we have two categories: quantitative research and qualitative research. So I will talk briefly about it. Pure and applied research, the major difference that you will find in pure and applied research is that the pure research is academic in nature. It is majorly conducted, it is majorly undertaken to enhance your own knowledge, right? Whereas in applied research, you will find that uh, it is based on pure research. It is descriptive in nature, and the finding of applied research are meant for the present time. That's the very important for the current use. So we find that in social sciences and humanities, it is majorly applied research, right? And as I said, it is descriptive in nature, and it is based on theories, principles which are discovered through pure research, which is exploratory in nature. So that's the major difference between pure and applied. So pure, as I said, it is for your own understanding, it is for your own enhancement of knowledge, and whatever theories are brought about it, that are usually used in the used for the applied research. Now let me come back to my previous slide. The distinction as per objectives in the types of research is exploratory. Now, exploratory research, if you pick up a topic which has not been explored beforehand, which has not been investigated earlier, not much is known about it. It is known as an exploratory research. You want to dwell deep into it to find out more. Now, to take up that research, it is very important that you do a pilot study or you check a feasibility study before going for an exploratory research, and not take a data which is too huge, right? So you take up a pilot study, you use it for on a small size and see whether it is feasible or not. And then you, if it is feasible, then you go ahead and use it on a major data, on a whole set of data. Descriptive research is when you have to describe, right? Describe about phenomena, describe about the process, describe about the procedure. For example, if a researcher takes up a topic on how is the living condition of slum dwellers in their area. So researcher would definitely be dealing with description of their living in slum area. So this will be included as a descriptive research. Correlational, when your research talks about two variables and what is the relation between it. So it will be correlational. If I give an example in this, so you want to take that a researcher wants to study that how celebrities presence in advertisement TV ads, it enhances the sale of that product. So you want to study the relation between the appearance of a celebrity, maybe TV stars or movie actors, with the sale of the product. So it is, you are going to study the relation between two variables, right? Or maybe you want to study that how uh, you know rural areas, because of lack of education, are not educated. So you want to study the relation between uh, the uh, the lack of opportunities in rural areas with unemployment or with non-education. The next category is explanatory. Now, explanatory, when you want to explain that how a child gets, demotivated, or how he faces, and how he's psychologically impacted if he has seen troubled parents, or he lives in an environment which is troubled, which is not conducive. So you want to explain the situation, right? So this falls under the category of explanatory research. The third distinction which we have to take up is as per the inquiry mode, and here we are going to talk about the quantitative research and qualitative research. Now, quantitative research, you might be very much aware of that it refers to quantity, right? And it will be analyzed through maths and statistical analysis. However, qualitative research is majorly involves summarizing, categorizing, interpreting, and exploring through reading literature, right? And humanities, social sciences, like areas like economics, psychology, English, journalism, uh, and all the other disciplines of social sciences takes care of undertakes qualitative research. However, the engineering and the science explorers usually go for quantitative research. uh, Quantitative research requires many respondents because you need to collect data. There would be certain requirement of numbers, graphs, tables, because you need to then analyze it. However, in qualitative research, you will find that response from few respondents can also be taken, and it is majorly descriptive in nature. You're going to describe this descriptive in nature. You need to understand the major key terms which are used in qualitative research is understanding, context, complexity, and subjectivity, right? So this is the major difference between quantitative and qualitative research. Now, how will you understand and how will you remember that when you have to use qualitative, or when a researcher has to use a qualitative research? So there's a thumb rule that you have to use quantitative research if you want to confirm or test something, maybe an hypothesis, a theory, or maybe you want to see that how this machine is going to work, what happens if you add this substance to another, and what is the result. So you are going to use a quantitative research. However, in a qualitative research, you have to understand the concept, thoughts, experiences, right? Also, you need to keep that in mind that a researcher can use both the kinds of research, right? There is in a research proposal, depending upon the topic that has been chosen by a researcher. So there could be the employment of one or more research types by a researcher. Now I come to the major part of today's session. What is a research proposal, and which I'm going to talk at length. Now, why, as I said, why there is a need to write a research proposal or to understand about it, because we are living in times that we need to enhance our professional skills. We also need to make ourselves visible among the team of researchers, or maybe in the we need to be identified and establish ourselves as a researcher. So a research proposal could be, if one is looking for some funds, right, from the agencies that I've already spoken, maybe government, maybe private, or your own institution, or a research proposal could also be undertaken by a postgraduate student if he's applying for higher education, or if a researcher is undertaking a dissertation work, so a research proposal is very much important. Or and also a lot of times PhD scholars who want to be enrolled for their PhD in a university or in a college of high repute, they need to submit a proposal, right, before they are taken in by the institution. So through a research proposal, the team of faculty members would review their proposal, would see that how committed a researcher is, how well a researcher has submitted his proposal, is it very persuasive, what is his intent. All that is extracted, all that is analyzed, is read from the research proposal. So that becomes very important for a researcher to uh, be very cautious, to be extra cautious in writing a research proposal. So it is a concise and coherent summary of your proposed research, what you want to do in your research, right? What would be your topic, how you are going to progress. All that has to be summarized and written and will form a part of your research proposal. It gives an opportunity to show that you have the aptitude for research by demonstrating that you have the ability to communicate complex ideas clearly, concisely, and critically. So it becomes a key part of your application. As I said, a research scholar would be submitting a proposal to his or her supervisor, who will, after reading the research proposal, will make up his mind whether to take that researcher in or not, right? So this proposal has to be very well structured. It is a formal document, and it should very clearly speak about what you want to plan to research, that is, what is your research topic and why have you picked up that topic. That's the very basic question that a lot of time it is asked when you make a presentation of your research proposal, that why have you picked up this topic. So you need to have a substantial justification for choosing the topic, and then definitely what is your plan to investigate. How are you going to investigate on your topic? What is your approach? What methods are you going to use in your research? So research proposal, as I said, is a formal document. It has to be very well written. The choice of words have to be taken in mind, and it should clearly spell out your intent of taking this research and your progress, how you are going to take it up further. So this is the basic structure of a research proposal. So number one, it should have introduction, or sometimes it is also called as an abstract, literature review, the objectives of your study, the methodology that you are going to adopt while in your research work, the proposed outcome of the research, and references. Now, this is the major structure that I have mentioned it here for the participants' convenience. However, you might find little deviation because the universities, organizations have their own structure, and it might deviate, but majorly it is going to have these components. And let me tell you that the proposed outcome of the research, remember initially I said that it has to be solution oriented. So you need to have research questions in your proposal. What are the topic? The topic that you have taken would have been derived because certain questions would have bothered you, right? And you are going to provide a solution to these problems that is going to form the outcome of the research. And let me now take you through each part of this structure in detail. So, first is the introduction, which forms the major part of your proposal, and it is very important because this is the first written form that a supervisor or your organization would be reading, which forms a part of your research proposal. So, while reading the abstract, one needs to understand precisely what your intent to do is in your research, what you want to do in your research, and why you wish to do it, how you will do it, what will be the expected major findings, the result or conclusion, and your argument. So, your introduction will briefly give a gist of your proposal, right? You might have seen research articles that get published in journals. So, all these papers have an abstract of 150 to 200 words. When if one reads that abstract, one gets to know what the paper would be majorly talking about. And if you're interested in that topic, in that research paper, you will definitely read it minutely. If it doesn't involve or it doesn't attract research, your broad area of expertise, then definitely you might move to the next paper. You look for something else. So, abstract has to be concise. When I say that it has to be clearly written, it also has to be concise. It should not be running into many pages. Many institutions usually give a word limit. So, remember that you stick to it and you do not write too much. So it has to be majorly, the requirement is 250 to 300 words. So it is a diagnostic tool which allows you to test your understanding of what you would accomplish in your research at various stages in the drafting and revising process. So it's not only going to tell the supervisor about your intent, what you want to do, but also it is going to uh, make you understand that why you have taken this research and how you are going to accomplish. So it is a very important document, not only for supervisor or the organization where you have applied, but also for you, because this is going to be a roadmap. It's going to establish a roadmap for you, right? Now, the abstract, if you write for a conference paper, a journal publication, would be something little different from when you're going to write it for a thesis, a funding application, or a research proposal. But majorly, all the abstracts should include these points about explaining the your majorly the topic that you have chosen, and how are you going to establish it, how what will be your major findings and your outcomes also. But remember, talk about it in a brief manner because you have to keep the word limit also in mind. Now, certain helpful tips while writing an abstract is you need to reread your abstract, right? And once you reread, you will find that certain words are unnecessary. You have just, written it down. However, you can also leave it, you can omit it. So, editing will be very important when you write an abstract. So, your first abstract has to be reread, it has to be edited. So keep on revising your abstract. Look for the certain weaknesses, try to improve. See that you make a coherent approach when you move from one paragraph to another. There has to be link formed. It should not be a very kind of abstract change of the argument. And while you reread, you edit, remember, and try to read it from the perspective, from the point of view of the supervisor, of the person to whom you are going to submit it. Does it make sense? And a lot of times I've seen researchers, they usually take help of their friends, their co-scholars, and when they do it, definitely it improves their abstract. Make sure to make it complete and accurate. Whatever you have in mind, there might be a lot of ideas, there would be a lot of points regarding the topic, regarding the research proposal you might have in your mind. But remember that you are able to spell it out, you're able to write it properly, and project it nicely for the supervisor to understand. Grammar, spelling, and punctuation, which are very important. A lot of times we find scholars do it in a hurry, in a rush. So that has to be taken care of. There shouldn't be any grammar, because no supervisor, no agency likes a work which is not well written, which has got errors. And please remember to write it in the same voice that should be maintained throughout. So, an abstract, if you are going to write it for a research proposal, right, it should very clearly spell the purpose of writing or the intent of taking up this research, right? What are the methods you are going to use? What will be its scope, result, the outcome of it, what do you conclude from it, and definitely what are your recommendation for the future researchers. So your abstract, the points which have been mentioned here, refers to the abstract which will be included in a research proposal. But remember, if you're writing a thesis, if you're writing a dissertation, if you're writing research paper, then your abstract would be dealt a little differently from this point. Now I come to the second part of the research proposal is literature review. Now, literature review is a continuous process, and it should begin from the very first stage when you start thinking about your, maybe your broad area of research, and from there you narrow it down and you think of a particular or a specific topic. So literature review is nothing but a review of the existing literature, right? So, if you have thought about a broad area of research in which you are going to take up in your proposal, and then if thankfully you have decided on a specific topic, then start reviewing the literature which is available in that area. Now, why is it so important? So important, why? Because it tells you about what research has already taken place in this area. What are the findings which other researchers have already done, right? And are there any gaps in this? And these gaps can be filled if you take up research in that particular area, right? It also provides a theoretical background to your study. At times, we have seen that scholars do come up and say that they are not aware which topic to choose for their research. So, so the best part is if you can help them to identify their broad area, then at least ask them to start reviewing the literature, right? So they can read the literature which is present there, which is already available, the open source. They can download it, they can read it, they can understand it, and from there it will be very helpful to them to finally take up a topic or to shortlist a topic, and it will bring a lot of clarity to them, right? So it broadens your knowledge base in your research, and it also helps to contextualize your research. It also, at the same time, helps in framing the objectives of the study. Now, objectives I'm going to take up a little later in my next slide. Why? Because objectives form a very important part of the research proposal, which go till the end, right? So now, if one has to search for the existing literature, how one is going to do it? So a researcher has to majorly look for the books which are available in that area, the journals, or also search nowadays on the internet. But please, one point that a researcher has to keep in mind, or maybe supervisors need to guide their scholars, is to filter the information that is available on internet, right? Not everything has to be uh, read from there or taken from there. It has to be filtered. Whatever is essential for you, whatever is relevant for you, please take it up, and the rest, which is trash, which is not of good standard, which is not of good quality, has to be kept aside. Now, uh, this reading literature will help you to identify research gap, right? So research gap is the gap in research. So whatever literature exists, which has all the researchers have already produced, that will help you to uh, take up a topic or decide on a title to take up for your research. It will help you to, it will give you a reason for conducting your research in that particular topic, right? And that will also ensure that your research is unique, because I said each researcher has to embark on a new journey. It has to be a novel research, so it will only be unique, it only be novel if you have identified the research gaps, and you, it gives you a reason to conduct research in that area. It will also help you to think about your research question. Research questions are those for which will help you to take up the research, and which will also help you to decide on the outcome of your research, right? So it will help you to think about your research questions, and these questions will be very bothersome. It will have to be taken up critically. It will keep bothering you unless and until you find an answer to it, and the answer is going to be a part of your outcome in your research proposal. Now, how to identify a gap? That's a very basic question that scholars usually ask. Is when you do an exhaustive study of the existing literature, right? So, number one, you have identified your broad area of research, and you have started listing down the existing literature which you need to read, and this is with the help of internet, with the help of books which are available, and with the help of the articles, the journals. Then you start critically reviewing the theories which are related to your topic, and by reading the future research directions, right? What application it has in future, and is there something which the researchers have already taken up, right? And that will help you to identify the research gap. Now, this is the graphical presentation of literature review, which will help you to understand how to take up the review of the literature, right? So we begin from top. So it says read about your topic from various sources, right? So you have identified your area of research. Maybe you have not yet decided on your specific title or topic, but you have majorly decided that you're going to work in this direction, right? For example, if I take an example from literature, and if a scholar has decided to take up a research in diaspora writings, or maybe subaltern writings, or maybe take up works of Shakespeare. So that's the major area that a researcher has already decided. And now you start reading about it from various sources. Now, sources I've said, I'm repeating it again: books, journals, internet, right? And then have a basic understanding of what these books and journals talk about pertaining to your area. Then form an outline, have a comprehensive view, analyze, synthesize, evaluate, reread it, try to evaluate, try to form a basic draft of it, right? Go for a more extensive study and prepare the final draft. So, this uh, graphical picture will help you to understand how to undertake literature review. And remember, literature review is not something which is to be conducted only for some specific duration. It should go from the very beginning of the time when you have thought of doing a research till the end of your research. So it's a continuous process. It should go hand in hand. And by the because your research will mostly takes 3 years, 4 years, 4.5 years. So by the time you submit your work, your thesis, your dissertation, or submit your research work, so by the time some researchers have uh, you know uh, written certain articles pertaining to your area, that will help you in enhancing your own research work. So keep on doing literature review till the time you submit your work. So it has to be a continuous process, and it is going to help you make your research very unique. Objectives of research. So, as I said in the beginning, your objectives of research have to be very clearly mentioned, very clearly stated, right? And an equal emphasis must be given when you spell out your objectives. Why? Because it will tell the purpose of undertaking that investigation, right? Why have you taken this research topic? So your objectives are going to speak in that favor. So it should be the objective should be closely related to the statement of the research problem, giving the sponsor specific, concrete, and achievable goals. Now, goals, when I say, so those have to be achievable, right? Your research should be yeah, whatever research you undertake, ensure that goals are not far fetched, which are not realistic, right? They have to be realistic, they have to be achievable. The objective should be expressed in such a way that the wording clearly, completely, and specifically communicates to your readers your intention. Remember, in the beginning, I spoke about justification, that why have you taken this research topic? That's the very basic question asked in every interview or in your presentation. So, your objective should definitely bring out that in front of the audience. There shouldn't be any place for ambiguity, non specificity, or incompleteness, either in the wording of your objectives or in the ideas they communicate. Use action oriented words while writing your objectives, and your objectives could be general objectives, or they could be the specific objectives, right? Uh, so, objectives forms when you are writing your objectives, again, like your abstract or your introduction, you have to reread your objectives, you have to edit it, and use action oriented words. I'm going to come back to this point again in the later slide. The points one needs to keep in mind while writing the objectives. But it is an important part of your research proposal. Now, while you are writing your research objectives, you have to keep in mind the word SMART. That's the acronym, right? So, S stands for specific. Be uh, very specific, be exact on what you want to achieve, right? It should be measurable, it should be achievable, the outcomes, right? A is achievable, I've already said. R is realistic, so it can be challenging but must be achievable. T is time bound with a clear end date or time scale. So if you remember SMART, so you will form your objectives in a proper manner. I'm sure of that. So be very specific. Your objectives have to be measurable. Anyone can test it, right? They should be achievable, realistic, and which can be achieved in a specific time bound process. Now, while writing your research objectives, you have to take a look and read more about Bloom's taxonomy. Now, Benjamin Bloom was the person who has given in detail the in his book titled as Taxonomy of Educational Objectives, the classification of educational goals. So he in his book has majorly spoken about how to draft questions, the examination questions belonging to various cognitive levels. So he has identified majorly three domains: cognitive, affective, and behavioral, and it moves from bottom till the top. So, besides providing us a framework in designing the curriculum, in designing the questions, and improving our teaching methodology and pedagogy, we also make use of Bloom's taxonomy in framing our objectives. And if you make use of Bloom's taxonomy, you are never going to go wrong in writing your objectives, or any researcher would never falter, would not ever commit a mistake in framing his or her objectives. So the first level as per Bloom's taxonomy in cognitive level is remember. Right, so for remember, there are various synonyms which are mentioned here. One needs to recall facts, basic concepts. You can use certain action oriented words, which I did mention in my slide earlier, that use action oriented words. So you could use define, duplicate, memorize, repeat, or state. The next level is to understand. So, whatever topic you have taken, it will help you to understand certain idea or concept. It will help you to describe or maybe recognize something, right? For example, if you talk about the hygiene of slum dwellers, so it will help you to understand their living condition. The third stage is apply, right? So whatever you're understanding, you would be able to execute, you will be able to implement it, right? Next is to analyze, which also talks about bringing or drawing connection between ideas. Or you could use certain action oriented words like differentiate, organize, relate, compare, contrast. If you have to understand the relation of celebrities appearing in ad with the rise in sales, so definitely you are relating the two variables. You are going to analyze the relationship between the two. Next is evaluate, and the last and very important, and which is the highest in this pyramid, is to create. When one produces an original work, you are able to design, or maybe you are able to formulate your own theory, your own design. You are able to investigate, and that's the new research, right? When you bring something new in your research. So, if you refer to Bloom's taxonomy while writing your objectives, it will help you. Number one, in using the action oriented words. Number two, it will help you in framing your objectives very clearly without, uh, without missing to project your intent properly. So, we always suggest our researchers, our young scholars, to refer to Bloom's taxonomy. Next is we are going to talk about the method of and tools of data collection. So, herein I'm going to talk about two sources: is secondary data and primary data. So primary data are going to be the books, the text if one has taken up a research topic in humanities, could be a fictional work, could be a novel, right? And secondary data, which you are also going to use in your literature review, are going to be books, journals, newspaper, reports of the available studies, and so on and so forth. Could be internet source also, right? So primary data is always collected by a researcher by interviewing the subjects or by using the questionnaire or the interview schedule. Depending on the objective of the research study, the researcher will decide about the method and tool of data collection. Not necessarily that every research will use the questionnaires or would require interviews to be conducted. It will depend on the topic that you have taken up for your research, that does it require any tool or not, right? So if you go for a descriptive research, it might not require any data collection. A lot of times you might have seen certain Google forms that get floated, reaches to us to fill our preferences, to give our views, because the researcher has to collect data, right? Data collection may be a part of your research topic only if it is required and may not be. So it will vary and it depends on what research you have taken up. Now we come to the next stage of writing a research report. So we have understood that the proposal will have an introduction. You need to review the existing literature. You have to frame your objectives very clearly and in a critical manner. Now you need to write your report also properly. So, as Burns said, that extremely valuable and interesting practical work may be spoiled at the last minute by a student who is not able to communicate the results easily. So, if you're not able to communicate your topic or to communicate uh, your research properly, write it down properly, carefully, by projecting your intent nicely so that it reaches to the evaluator, then there is no significance and you will lose the chance of getting entry into an organization, entry into a university, or your proposal will not be accepted. So, each student, each scholar needs to be very careful while writing the report and while penning it down. So, one needs to have good written communication skills, that's very essential. One needs to also be very clear in thoughts, right? You have read too much, you have explored too much, but then it has to be written in a very systematic, logical, coherent manner. And for that, one needs to have that clarity of thought. Write the report in a logical, rational, and sequential manner, and the knowledge base of the subject area is very crucial. Besides keeping in mind these points, we continue further. The report writing skills should be very important. Also, if your research includes uh, diagrams, graphs, pictograms, one needs to express it, one needs to include in the research very carefully and at the right place, right? While writing it, the chapterization has to be kept in mind. Again has to be very sequential. Uh, if you are writing your references or bibliography, it could be either using Modern Language Association (MLA) or APA style. It Most of the times MLA style is followed. However, certain organizations, universities do mention which style to be followed, right? So you need to keep in mind that, and accordingly prepare your bibliography references, and please make sure that you prepare a exhaustive list of your bibliography, because the supervisors do want to know what all works you have read or whatever works you have mentioned in your proposal. So do not work it in a haste. Spend some time, deliberate upon it, and prepare a good list of bibliography, right? The style, definitely, as I said, it is varies from one place to another, from one organization to another. Now, do and don'ts in research proposal. So first I'm going to talk about do's. Though from the very beginning I have been mentioning how one needs to write and prepare a research proposal, but still it has been listed here so that an emphasis is given and one keeps in mind. So first we'll talk about use. So remember, a researcher needs to communicate the idea clearly and precisely. Highlight the ideas and the methods which you are going to use in your research, and please give the justification for carrying out this research. Your research is going to be a unique work. You are very passionate about it. You have read a lot about it, but the other side of the party doesn't know about it. So you need to justify your work, why you have taken this topic, what is your intention. Remember that the data that you present has to be accurate and correct. At times, we find that scholars present data which is either outdated, which is not from an authentic source, which gives a very bad leaves a very bad impression on the evaluators. So remember to present accurate data. Perform a thorough literature research for trustworthy and must up to date information. As I said in the beginning, up to date. So, till the time you submit your work, your research work, keep reviewing the literature, keep reading the latest happenings, and keep yourself abreast with the latest trends, latest happenings, and the research being carried out in your related to your research. Test your research information for reliability and present it with ample analysis and logic to show how it conveys and supports your research. Provide solid evidence and sufficient supporting arguments in favor of your research findings. For example, if you have taken a perception review, you have collected uh, views of or the observations of respondents. Have a copy of the observations with you that should be put as annexure, so that anybody who wants to see what you have collected or what were the interview questions you have used in your research, one can always glance through it. Write your paper with only details about the research work. Cite your references appropriately. Mark your notes to remember where you took the information from. Find a reliable source for your citation. At times, we have seen that researchers, while they read, uh, they cite from various sources, but once they have to mention it in the bibliography, they forget from where they have read it, where did they find it, it was on which page number, or was it available on internet. So they cannot remember from where did they uh, you know where did they read it. So while you are reading, and if you have to use it in your research proposal, it becomes very cumbersome, time taking to look for that information again and waste your time in searching in different sources. So mark your notes, write it then and there. Make a diary, make a register, and write it pretty much there. Proofread the paper several times. Take help of your friend, colleagues, professional editors in proofreading and editing your paper. So whether it is your professional help you want, or maybe your co-scholars, your teachers could also help you. So reread your own work. Proofreading is important, editing is very important, use of right words, vocabulary is very important. So whether you have written an abstract, you have written an introduction or objectives, the point is to reread and see that essentially what you have in mind, it conveys the same to the other person, to the evaluator. Now, let's talk about certain don'ts. These are more or less connected with do's, so do not misinterpret any information in the paper. Be honest with the readers. Anybody, anytime can recheck and can find fault with your information, so please be very careful of it. Don't include anything that doesn't answer the question or solve problems you ought to with your research. So there's no point in mentioning if it is not related with your research, right? So include things, include questions, information only if it is pertaining to your research. Do not add any unnecessary details. Don't give incomplete or absurd reason for doing the research. Don't exceed the recommended word limit. Yeah, that's very important because word limit, as I said, are usually specified, and there are different guidelines. If you're submitting it in a university, if you're submitting in a government agency, they specify the word limit. Or if it is an online application, so it will only pick up the words which are specified there as per the limit. The extra words will not be taken up. So seeing that if it says 250, you are able to summarize your thought within the word limit. Don't write for the sake of writing. Don't forget to reference any supporting material or related research by other prominent researchers. Very important. Why? Because referencing also talks about the another point which is connected with it is to plagiarize the content. So wherever you have picked up the reference from, maybe certain lines, maybe a dialogue, maybe a figure, maybe a diagram you have referred to, picked up from a book or the earlier research which has been conducted, refer to it, acknowledge that. Do not go for plagiarism. Do not pick up content as it is available to you, right? Because plagiarism is totally no for if you are you want to establish yourself as a researcher, if you want to do a novel research, if you're submitting your proposal. There are softwares which can immediately and quickly figure that out, and there are certain legal actions which are also taken against researchers who indulge themselves in picking up the plagiarized content, right? So if you have to, acknowledge it, refer to it, acknowledge, give the benefit of acknowledgement, right? Do not cite Wikipedia as a reference source because it is not an authentic source. It is also mentioned there. Do not use others' work without rephrasing the sentences. Again, it is related with plagiarism. Now, coming to the frequent mistakes, as I said, I have made this presentation majorly from my own experience, which I have seen over more than 2 decades. How scholars present their work, how they write their research projects and proposals. So, the frequent mistakes, errors, maybe out of their non being aware of the requirement they commit. So those have been listed here. So first is losing focus with too much rambling without having a clear sense of direction. They keep on writing, and forget that why they are submitting their proposal, what is their intention, right? So too much rambling has to be curbed, and that's the whole purpose of rereading your own work. Either you take it up yourself or you take help of your friends. That's very important. Being unable to provide a proper context to frame the research questions. So that's possible if you have done a good homework in the review of literature. So that will help you to contextualize, give a theoretical framework to your research. Failing to delimit the boundary walls of the proposed research study, hence deviating from the research proposal outlines. So that's very important that you delimit your research. If one has to take up a research of um, understanding the IT facilities which are available in uh, Delhi area. So one needs to then delimit because there are thousands of schools in Delhi. So one has to delimit. Either one takes up only the government schools, or one takes up the private schools, or maybe certain areas, East Delhi, West Delhi, right? Because if that is not done, then your research will be too vast, and you will lose time, you will lose your focus, and you will not be able to finish your work within the specific time frame. So remember that your research should be valid. It cannot go on and on and on. It has to be submitted. This is a time bound process. That's only possible if you delimit your work. Failing to cite important studies, having many citation labs and incorrect references, failing to make reference to key authors in the relevant discipline, field of study, research areas. So look for researchers who have done already established themselves in this particular area of your research, who have done remarkable work in this area. Do cite uh, them, do take help of their work, and then begin your own journey. So, we continue, failing to accurately present the theoretical or conceptual framework underpinning the proposed research study, failure to stay focused on the research questions, do not able if they are not able to develop a coherent and persuasive argument for the proposed research study. Uh, it has to be a persuasive argument. You have to sell your work. You have to make your evaluator uh, uh, realize that the research which you have now mentioned in your proposal is worth undertaking, right? Is worth to be selected. So you have to present it very well. Being too long or too short at times, chipping in much details on trivial issues but not enough details on important issues. So uh, uh, one needs to very clearly see that the serious points have to be given importance. Bad writing multiplied by the failure to follow the underlying research proposal steps or research proposal format, examples suggested by your university or department. So see that wherever you are submitting your research work, in your university, college, organization, or maybe certain agency, whatever design, whatever structure they have given to submit the research proposal, that is followed, that is undertaken, because this is a very dynamic thing. As I have presented the structure of the research proposal, it might vary if you have to submit your work at some other place. There will be certain slight variation. So so see that what is the requirement, and then accordingly you need to modify your work and then submit your work. So with that, I've come to the end of my presentation, wherein I have spoken about drafting your research proposal. Thank you very much. Over to you, Sri.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for sharing your valuable presentation with our participants, and we expect that we all are get benefited from this webinar.
Thank
And
you.
after our quiz competition session, we'll come back with you in our Q&A session. So till then, please stay with us.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, my dear lovely audience, thanks for staying with us right now. So, before starting our quiz competition, let me tell you once again, don't forget to share, comment, and mention your friends in our comment box. So, get ready for our quiz competition within a minute after a short video. So once again, welcome to all of you in our quiz competition session. So right now we have 50 participants. Okay, I think 16 participants joined in this competition. So let me tell you the whole process about the competition. You can see the joining link in our comment box. So go to the joining link that is given in our comment box. And also, you can go to www.slido.com and give the code that is IGP quiz. You can also scan the QR code that is flashed on the screen. And let me tell you that give your full name that you want to print in our certificates. So everyone join and share it more and more, and you can also mention your friends in our groups. We all know that quiz is a part of learning. So we all want to learn together, isn't it? So please mention your friends in our comment box so that they can also join with us and learn with us with fun. So let me tell you that there's a difference between quiz completion certificate and our webinar certificates. So after the quiz, we'll go to our Q&A session, and there you can ask your question on today's topic based to our speakers. So get ready also for that. And today, top 10 winners get certificate, and you can collect your certificates from our official Facebook page. The top 10 winners. So right now we have 32 participants who join. Okay, 33 participants who join with us. Thank you for joining, thank you for mentioning, and thank you for sharing. Let me tell you once again, you can see the joining link in our comment box or go to www.slido.com and give the code that is IGP. Okay, we have so many active participants who's commenting in our comment box. So I'm inviting to all of you to join in this quiz competition session. So right now we have 39 participants who will join with us. So we will start the program right now. So get ready. Let's start. So the first question is, when is the research proposal due? Is in November 2nd or November 3rd? Let's see the correct answer. The time is up. So the correct answer is November 2nd. 70% of our participants chose the right answer. So go for, let's see, Oli. Okay, first we have on first position in our video group is Brain Charles. Then we have Rosie. Then we have Mary B, following Christina and Lisa. So So congratulations to top five, leading right now in top five list on first question. Let's see the next question. The question is how many resources will your final topic proposal have at minimum? Is this 5 or 12? So the correct answer is 12. 15% of our participants chose the right answer. Let's see the leaderboard. Okay, we have Leah and Luna on first position in our leaderboard. Then we have Belen, following Josie, following Brent, and Lucy. So congratulations to all of you. Let's see our question number, which is not a question you should address in your research proposal. Is this does Professor Laser agree with my topic, or what kinds of sources you will need? So the correct answer is, does Professor Laser agree with my topic? So 87% of our participants got the correct answer. Let's see the leaderboard. Okay, once again we have someone new in first position in our leaderboard, and that is Belen E. Bakri. So following we have Josie, following Brent, Mary Vick, and Alex. So here are the orders. So let's see question number 4. How many lenses are there? 8 or 9? So the correct answer is A. 78% of our participants got the correct answer. Let's see leaderboard. We have once again Belen Ibagui on first position in our leaderboard, following Brain, Mary, Christina, Alex here. So congratulations to all of you. Let's see our question number 5. It is important that we learn how to use proper blank then when we write research. So fill the blank with the option correct option, citation or punctuation. So fill the blank with the option thumbs up, and the correct answer is citation. So 71% of our participants choose the right answer. Let's see the leaderboard. We have once again Melanie Barburia first position in our leaderboard. So congratulations. Following we have Christina, Alex, Lily, Emily. So let's see the question number 6. Fairies research interest, is this geothermal or overfishing? So the correct answer is geothermal. 86% of our participants got the correct answer. So let's see the leaderboard. Oh, still we have the leading in first position in our leaderboard. Like Christina, we have Zaru, and Emily. So congratulations to all of you. Let's see our question number 7. When presenting your revised proposal, you should presentation again. So choose one option So the correct answer is only 20% changed. 39% of our participants got the correct answer. So let's see the leaderboard. Okay, we have Emily and on first position in our leaderboard, following Rosie, following Jogar, following Belen, and Murphy. So congratulations to all of you. Let's see our next question. How many members does the EcoSoul have? 54 or 54? So the correct answer is 54. 85% of our participants got the correct answer. So let's see the leader. Okay, we have Emily on first position in our leaderboard. Still, she's leading on first position, following Rosie, following Julia, and then we have Belen. They're still in our top list. Okay, let's see our question number 9. The question is how long ago flying that they have first. So you have to fill with the option. Options are have or been meeting, did or met. So the correct answer is second one, that is you have to put how long ago did the first met. 64% of our participants got the correct answer. Let's see the leaderboard. Okay, we have Rosie on first position in our leaderboard, following Joker, Helen, Emily, Charlie, in top 5. So let's see our last question, that is question number 10, and let's see who's going to be placed on first position and win our total winners. Okay, the question is how many students in
इंग्रजी भाषा में पढ़ा रहे थे मैं सब
correct answer is 12. Okay, 45% of our participants got the correct answer. Let's see the leaderboard. And first we have Joker with also the first position in our top 10 winners list. And then we have Ellen E. Babu, we have Rosie T. Then we have Leonora, Sabayan, Jerry, Emmeline, and Fizu. And let's see the others' name. So we have Charlene, Kalezu, Nachi, then we have Mary, we have Emmeline, we have Anelita, and Leah Fakumala. They are our top 10 winners. So congratulations to our top 10 winners. Congratulations once again to our top 10 winners. You will get your certificates from our Facebook official page. And thank you for participating. Thank you for joining. And before going to our next session, that is Q&A session, let me tell you once again, don't forget to tag, share, and mention your friends to our program. So we will come back after a short video with our honorable speakers. So get ready to ask your questions to our speakers, and please address your name in Welcome once again, ma'am.
Thank you.
This is our QA session, and now we're participants going to ask questions. So, okay, we already have a question from our participants. So, the question is from Joyce. Dr. Shivani, why is it so hard to find an appropriate theoretical framework for one study?
Okay. Hi, Josie. So, regarding the theoretical framework you have asked for your study, it is actually not hard, right? As I said in my presentation, you need to go through a review of the literature, right? I'm not sure you are from which discipline, but you need to have go for your literature review properly, read the books, the journals regarding the topic or regarding the broad area that you have taken up for your research. Read about it clearly, and from there you will be able to contextualize your research, right? So initially, if you make a beginning, it's going to be it would appear being very difficult, but more you dwell deep into it, more you go deep into it, you will understand that it's not going to be so, because more reading will enlighten you, will help you to know more about your research topic, right? So that's the only way of finding a theoretical framework, and that was taken up in the slide which I had spoken about literature review. That's very important, and as I said, it's going to be going to be a continuous process. So till the time you finish your work, you finish your proposal, keep reading about literature pertaining to your area of research, and it's not going to be very threatening, which appears at the very start of your journey when you do it, but you will definitely find it.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Okay. Question from Marlo Tapa. What is the best title I used for my research?
Okay, so Madhu, best title for your research? See, it's very difficult for me to answer that question. You are the only one who can answer that yourself, right? Because it depends on various factors. Number one, what is your area of research? Number two, you are from which discipline? Are you from sciences? Are you from engineering? Are you from humanity, social sciences? Right. So that will decide the title of your research. And as I said, a researcher is the only person who can decide the title for his or her own self, and that depends on on your passion about the title, right? So you need to do the shortlisting, you need to do the reading of the literature around the research which has gone by, and then that will help you to shortlist and decide the title for which you should be passionate, you should be focused, and you should be able to undertake that research.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Let's see who's going to ask our next question. New question. Let's see. Okay. Again, we have a question from Josie. Dr. Shivani, it's 2022, but most literature relevant to my study came from 2000 to 2013. Is this recommendable? I guess it's 10 years as a rule of thumb, right?
Uh, Joyce, there is no thumb rule regarding review of literature. We are right now in 2022. So you said your literature majorly comes from 2000 to 2013. Please read that. Please read it, make your notes, understand it, and that will help you decide your research that you need to undertake. Uh, Scholars in fact refer, if they are doing the research now, they in fact refer to a lot of historical data or the historical literature also, right, pertaining to the 19th century, 18th century, because you have to trace out the genesis of the research problem, right, from where it started. It is your research questions around your research topic are not something which have just erupted, right? They will have some background to it. Now, to understand that background, you need to read literature from where it all started, the origin of it, and from there you need to trace out. So, literature of belonging to any era, any year will definitely be helping you to understand your research area, and number two will be helpful in writing your research and undertaking your research.
Thank you, ma'am. So, and we have our next question from Evelyn Laperi. Good afternoon, ma'am. What framework do we use in quantity and quality research? Thank you.
Okay, Evelyn, framework in quantitative and qualitative. See, I said there is no demarcation and there is no rule that for one research you have to take quantity or qualitative. You can take both. It all depends on what research topic you have chosen for yourself, right? So quantitative, as I said, quantitative refers to the data, refers to figures. You will require maths, you will require statistical tools in interpreting the data collected. However, when it comes to qualitative, it is majorly is focused on the experiences of the respondents. It is majorly talking about their experiences or the response that we receive, the real life experiences, right? So both these research are quite different. However, when we talk about humanity, social sciences, economic, sociology, one refers to qualitative research, but that's again no rule. One can also take up a topic from humanities, maybe studying about ICT in different schools, as I said in my presentation, that will require data to be collected from respondents, that will require data to be collected from schools, which again will be interpreted by using statistical tools, and that will form a part of your research.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for sharing. And we have so many questions coming. Let's see our next question. That is from Jonathan Orbe. Dr. Shivani, how could I arrange my review of related literature?
Hmm. Yes, Jonathan, that's very important question and good that you asked. See, review of literature, as I said, is a continuous process which will begin from the time you think about your area till the time you submit your research work, which will be a span of 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. It will vary, right? So one needs to be very methodical in this approach. And the best part is what I usually suggest my scholars is to make notes of whatever you read. Either make a note in your diary or make a note in your laptop and keep on listing it. Maybe if they have read a book, so list it as per the style which is given by your organization. It could be MLA, APA style. Stick to that and keep jotting it down, keep writing it down, and then it could be arranged in any way as you want it to be or as per the requirement of the organization. So that's very important. A scholar, we find, they read a lot, they write sometime in one book, sometime in another, and then at the end of the day when they have to prepare their maybe bibliography references, they forget and they lose track of whatever they have read, and it becomes a troublesome exercise for them to again revisit all those places. So best practice that I keep on telling my scholars is to jot it down in your diary or in your laptop in a word document. Keep writing it down, which will always remain with you till the end and for any ready reference.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Okay, our next question from Innocent Daja. When writing abstract and literature review, what tense should be used, present or past?
Yes, Innocent. So, see, while you are writing a literature review, so I always tell my scholars to use the past tense because that literature already exists. It already exists in that pool of knowledge, right? It is not something which would be there in future. It was there in the past. You are reading it and then you are explaining it, you are writing about it. So it past tense has to be used. However, in the abstract you can use a present tense, right? Because this is the abstract which is going, you are writing it from your own point of view, from the own research that you need to undertake, your intent, your methodology. You are going to explain the outcomes, so that can be a present tense and should be. And for literature review, definitely it has to be past tense that I would always recommend.
Thank you, ma'am. So our last question from Valet's PO, Dr. Shivani, can you give me an idea what type of research will I apply if my research topic is about difference of skills that are demonstrated and skills requirement?
What type of research valid? Uh, I'm not very sure about what is your question because it doesn't give me an idea what you have in mind. But both these things are very different. Skill demonstrated, what skills are demonstrated by a person, and skill requirement could be from perspective of an employer, right? So if you're going to talk about both the things, which majorly I can understand could be from management perspective, if your discipline happens to be management, it could both be a qualitative and a quantitative research, right? For this, if when I say quantitative, so you can collect data from industry, you can collect data from companies, and you can analyze these skills which are usually demonstrated by people, the employers can mention about it. Also the skills which are required by industry, that can also be part of the quantitative research. At the same time, if I take it as a qualitative research, so then I can be very descriptive in mentioning that what skills should be demonstrated by individuals who are there in company, by individuals who are there in an industry, the employees, or what is the skill required by them that will establish themselves as good employees, what skills must be possessed by them. So research for these two can be taken up both as a qualitative and as a quantitative. It all, as a researcher, you need to decide yourself first, right? It is purely your decision that what your path will be and which kind of research you want to take up for both of these.
Thank you, ma'am. So we are taking the last question from our active participants, and the question is, what is the best research topic during this time of pandemic that can help our students and community?
Okay. So, in fact, during pandemic, there were a lot of new research, and there was a flood of researches which were taken up by people. We saw a lot of books that came out that spoke about impact of pandemic on individuals, pandemic on society, how people cope with it, or maybe the violence that got increased manifold in household because men were at home, women were there, there was no energy let out by them, so it added on the domestic violence. so uh, so if you talk about the research topic, so these were the research topics which have been done, which have been dealt by researchers. You can talk about young generation, how it has affected employment, how what lifestyle changes people have now adapted in their life to overcome pandemic or to make their survival. There was research going around regarding migrants because we saw that pandemic, people were far away from their homes. They tried to reach home. So there was the migrants were undergoing a crisis. So that also was an important area of research. So these are some of the possible research areas. I'm saying this is not a topic. These are some of the areas, and from there, after doing a literature review, after seeing what research has been done in this area, you can think of a research topic for yourself.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with our participants. And we're very honored to have you here.
Thank you so much, and thank you once again for inviting me.
Okay, ma'am.
And
Have
my
a good day.
email was mentioned in my slide. If anybody wants to interact with me, you can please drop your mail to me.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
So, my dear lovely audience, today our program name is How to Draft a Research Proposal. So, and the code is ITP 1870. Let me repeat once again. The code is 1870, and without code, no one is eligible for certificates. And without code, you can claim your certificates anytime. And before ending our show, let me uh, let me thank all of you for joining with us and stay still now with us. And those who participate in our quiz competition, they'll get their winner certificates from our official Facebook page. So don't forget to celebrate your happiness with us. So till then, stay happy, stay healthy wherever you are, and have a good day to all of you. Right now, I'm signing myself, Nasrin Nisha, and once again, thank you to all of you.